Superhero movies fucking suck now. Aside from maybe a few bangers, I think most people, including myself, can agree that superhero fatigue is pretty much in full swing. Whether you want to talk about production troubles, bad visual effects, movie stars that should really be inside a prison cell by now, and other crazy shit, superhero movies started out as a novelty film genre, before changing Hollywood forever with films like Spider-Man and X-Men and Iron Man and The Dark Knight, all culminating in the genre's final form: cinematic brain slop. Both Marvel and DC have made a lot of slop recently, to the point where veteran filmmakers had to call out how much the superhero movie machines have been damaging Hollywood for the past few years, even though barely anyone under the age of 17 cares what they think for some reason. Which is rather sad, because there's honestly been so much slop that sucks so hard that people are genuinely starting to fall out of comic book movies entirely. And then you have something like The Batman. Released in early 2022, Matt Reeves' The Batman came out at a time when the reputation of comic book movies began to decline. And considering it came out the same year as Morbius, that's saying a lot. And The Batman worked so well compared to other superhero movies at the time because it did the very thing that made this genre work in the first place: be a fucking movie. What I mean by that is that this is an actual movie made by actual people that tells an actual standalone story, and you can kinda tell just by how director Matt Reeves has his creative input all over this thing. The visual tone, the musical score by Michael Giacchino, the emotional weight, the action sequences, the dreary and gritty look of Gotham City. You can tell that this film was clearly made by someone who's been a lifelong hardcore Batman fan, and even going as far as to cite some lesser-known Batman comics as sources of inspiration for the film's look and tone. Now, obviously, every Batman film needs to center around the Batman character, and they also need to give him an arc that would define his ethos and pathos as a superhero. Most of the best Batman films do this by focusing on his Bruce Wayne secret identity just as much as his superhero alter ego, while the others are Adam West and George Clooney. And I think Robert Pattinson's portrayal of the Caped Crusader is certainly no exception. The best way I can describe his performance in the film is that it's exactly what would happen if the guy who was in these films played Batman. His version of Bruce Wayne arguably stands out more than his version of Batman. He's much more defeated and nihilistic and jaded compared to previous iterations of the character. Usually, he's portrayed as this sort of charismatic billionaire who's almost always in swimming pools and boats with random chicks. This version of Bruce Wayne would rather listen to Nirvana on loop than to show up for company meetings, which means he's emo. He keeps logs on his diary and narrates about how broken the city is, and he's almost always looking like he hasn't taken a shower in weeks. And when he's Batman, he's severely pounding the ever-living shit of criminals in hopes of inflicting his own brand of justice and vengeance. This version of the character has spent more time as Batman than Bruce Wayne, almost as if it's a drug addiction to him. I think if anything, this film heavily focuses more on the psychology and morals of a younger Batman, especially one who hasn't fully coped with the grief of losing his parents during his youth. It's a different kind of origin story for the Batman character, since he's already in his second year at the job, but isn't really the Batman we know and love yet. And that's where the Rogues Gallery comes in. The main plot of this film is essentially Batman uncovering a series of murders caused by Chris Chan.
I want everything about my house off the internet!
Who's basically a popular online cult leader, and sees Batman as a huge inspiration in the way he brings his own sense of justice into Gotham City. Basically, he's a fucked up little guy who thinks he's just like Batman. The Riddler is modernized in this movie as a mysterious serial killer, similar to that of the Zodiac Killer, who Matt Reeves described as the real-life version of the Riddler. He also has a deep resentment for Bruce Wayne and his entire family since they basically failed to improve his shit childhood, causing him to grow up to become one of the Wayne's biggest haters in the history of Gotham. Despite being much more morally ambiguous than Batman, Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman is just as much of a protagonist in this movie as him. She's essentially crucial to his emotional arc throughout the film, while having a character arc of her own, which I think is one of the film's biggest strengths. She starts out as what at first seems to be some random waiter for the Penguin, who is not played by Danny DeVito in this movie, unfortunately, but Colin Farrell did a good job nonetheless, then goes home to discover that her roommate is fucking dead, and near the end of the movie, it turns out that she's the daughter of Carmine Falcone, who also ordered the murders of Batman's parents. She tries to kill him until Batman stops her from doing so, which is one of the most emotional scenes in the whole film. But not long before stupid-ass Riddler decides to be a camper and snipe down Falcone just so he could earn some extra kills for a tactical water nuke that he can deploy in Gotham City. And then Catwoman says that Gotham is beyond saving, and honestly, I don't blame her after all that. I think my only issue with her is that there wasn't an extended basketball scene with her and Batman, but they're probably saving that for the sequel. The Penguin and Carmine Falcone are basically these mob bosses that you see in something like Goodfellas or The Godfather, and they're very fun to watch as a result of that. Every single character in this movie is important to the plot, and they all get something to do. Even this random cop named Martinez is crucial to solving the Riddler's murders, and like everyone else, I think he's the best character in the whole movie. The film takes a lot of inspiration from classic neo-noirs and real-life American politics, primarily those from the 70s. Matt Reeves mentioned films like The French Connection, All the President's Men, and Chinatown as some of the film's biggest tonal influences. In a way, Joker was also inspired by the films from the 70s, and the look of that film was just as gritty and drab. But I think the Batman sets itself apart by being what people describe as sort of like a David Fincher crime thriller with superheroes. Richard Nixon's Watergate scandal was also a big inspiration for the film, especially in the way that they portray these politicians as scummy douchebags of the earth, which, funny enough, isn't too far away from present-day America. Then there's the film's third act, where the Riddler's incel goons tried to murder this lady who's running for mayor, and then the Batman and Catwoman and the Watcher show up to stop them. This is a different kind of final battle compared to other superhero movies, because Batman isn't necessarily fighting the main villain directly, but I think is more so fighting his own morals. Both Batman and the Riddler believe that Gotham City is a giant filthy dumpster run by the corrupt elites, but they disagree with each other because the Riddler kills people, and that's bad. Remember how cool it was hearing Batman say, "I'm vengeance," when the first trailer came out back in 2020?
I'm vengeance.
Well, in this scene, we have a Riddler goon say it back to him, and for a brief moment, he's horrified to learn that his violent brand of justice is worsening the city rather than saving it, before he injects some dopamine into his body, impounding the shit out of some goon like he's fucking Omni-Man or something. The city then gets flooded and Batman nearly drowns, but just when all hope is lost, he emerges anew as a savior of Gotham City, guiding the people out of the darkness. I personally think that this is easily one of the most beautiful endings in comic book movie history, and this is where he realizes that bringing vengeance and anger onto the people of Gotham will only make the city worse than it already is. And so he learns to inspire hope and help other people in need. It's such an emotionally powerful arc that reminds us why we love Batman as a character so much, and it gives the movie a brain and a heart that's clearly lacking from a lot of these dark and edgy comic book movies recently. The Batman is superhero filmmaking at its finest. I think one of the best things about this movie is how it doesn't try to be better than the other Batman films in the past, but instead brings its own unique ideas to the table that sets it apart from the rest. As a result, it's surprisingly much darker and grittier than the Nolan films, which nearly everybody thought couldn't be topped. So it's such an impressive feat for this film to pull off. It's also a solid reminder that superhero films can still be good. It's just that these dumbass studios would prefer not to, which is really sad. I can't wait to see what the future holds for this Batman world that Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves have created. I can't wait to see how they handle Joker. Hopefully they'll have a hardcore sex scene in the sequel. So yeah. And also, Condiment King. Okay, DC? I want to see Condiment King in Batman Part 2.
Natsumi, what are you talking about?
Oh shit. So yeah, 10 out of 10 movie, would recommend. Definitely better than Secret Invasion.